All the therapeutic principles now we use are from the inner classic. So let's check this book. The first one is from the first chapter of the Spiritual Pivot, 9 needles and 12 yuan source points. It says, to apply the needle, the deficient should be reinforced, the full should be discharged, the stagnation should be eliminated, and the predominance of evils should be reduced. Our modern explanation for this sentence is similar to what we have reviewed. The deficient refers to deficiency syndromes, while the full refers to the excess syndrome, and stagnation refers to blood stagnation. So far, so good, until the last part, predominance of evils. What does predominance of evils refer to? In the 28th chapter of Basic Questions, General Discussion on Deficiency and Excess, it says, predominance of evil qi indicates excess, while deprived essence qi indicates deficiency. This is the basic definition of excess and deficiency in pathogenesis. So it's obvious that the last sentence is talking about the excess should be reduced. It's from the pathogenesis and can be interpreted as excess syndromes. Now the question appears, since the last sentence is talking about the excess syndrome, why is there the sentence, the full should be discharged? Is it necessary to repeat the same meaning in a short sentence? Someone may argue that the full may be referred to the abdominal fullness, a special type of excess. But how do you know abdominal fullness or any kind of fullness is necessarily the excessive? Qi deficiency can also result in fullness. So maybe we can put forward another explanation. The deficient is what the doctor gets in the diagnosis. So does the full. How can we know it's deficient or full? We know there are 4 diagnostic skills: observation, auscultation, and olfaction, inquiry, and palpation. But the last one, palpation, is now often replaced with pulse-taking. However, palpation is more than pulse-taking. We also need to palpate the skin, the muscle, the vessel, the tendon, the bone, etc. in this examination. So when we press the root where the meridian passes, can we feel deficiency or full beneath our fingers? Of course we can. Your fingers will have totally different feelings when they touch the body of people with different physique. As to the stagnation, it can be vessels full of blood when you inspect or palpate, or the diagnosis of qi or blood. We can't know for sure because there is no other text to help. So, for the principle in the first chapter, except for predominance of evils is definitely the pathogenesis, the other 3 conditions can be explained from different aspects. From the pathogenesis, which is adopted nowadays, the deficiency, the full, the stagnation can be explained as syndromes. But this way, the full and predominance of evils repeat themselves in a very short sentence. This is hardly possible, especially in ancient literature, when pens and paper were quite precious. If we view from the aspect of diagnostic skills, it's easy to understand that the 3 conditions, the deficiency, the full, and stagnation can all be the result of palpation or inspection. Of course, the stagnation can also be understood as pathogenesis, as there is no other text in this chapter to support either side. So it's not certain which side it should belong to, but we can find texts in other chapters to support the side of diagnostic skills. Let's read them one by one. In the 3rd chapter of Ling Shu, Explanations of the Small Needle, which is actually an article to explain the 1st chapter of Ling Shu, there is a paragraph explaining the principle we introduced just now. It says the so-called the deficient should be reinforced, refers to that reinforcing should be applied when qi-kou is deficient. The force should be discharged means that reducing should be applied when qi-kou is excessive. The stagnation should be eliminated refers to removing blood vessels. Predominance of evils should be reduced refers to reducing the evils for each meridian that has the excess. How does this chapter explain the four conditions in the principle? Qi-kou is deficient, or excessive, or blood vessels, or each meridian is excessive. There is nothing about syndromes. They are actually all based on diagnostic skills. Qi-kou, the same as cun-kou, is the place we usually take pulse. Removing blood vessels. The blood vessel is the result of inspection, and obviously it doesn't refer to the pathogenesis or pattern of blood stagnation. As to the predominance of evils, it's about pathogenesis, but also related to the diagnosis, because from the context, we can know the excess is not the syndrome, but the result of diagnostic skills. So, in the first chapter, we know for sure that predominance of evils is from the viewpoint of pathogenesis. The other three are not certain, but now in this chapter, the other three are all from the viewpoint of diagnostic skills. The predominance is the pathogenesis, but based on the diagnostic results. We know the inner classic is actually a collection of documents. The explanation of small needle, though it's the third chapter of Ling Shu, the time of its completion should be relatively late. The diagnostic skill of qi-kou is one evidence, because in the inner classic, the skills for pulse taking include general pulse taking, comparison between Renying and cun-kou, and exclusive examination in cun-kou chronologically. That is, cun-kou or qi-kou method appeared relatively late, so the chapter which adopts this method can't be earlier. So, someone may argue again, this chapter is late. It's not a reliable evidence to prove that the deficiency of the four refers to the results of diagnostic skills. We have to check more. Let's see the ninth chapter of Ling Shu, ending and beginning. It says, 3 vessels all pulsate at the reading between the big toe, and their excess or deficiency should be examined. If the deficient is reduced, it's further deficiency, which means the disease is aggravated. To needle these, the vessels should be pressed with fingers. If the pulsation is excessive and rapid, it should be reduced immediately. If the pulsation is deficient and slow, it should be reinforced. Violating that, the disease will become worse. As to the pulsation, Yangming is on the upper, Jueying is in the middle, and Shaoying is in the lower. 3 vessels pulsate at the region between the big toe can be understood as 3 vessels pulsate at the region around the big toe. The last sentence of the paragraph offers the further explanation. Yangming is on the upper, Jueying is in the middle, and Shaoying is in the lower. Based on this, we know that the 3 vessels refer to 3 arteries. Yangming refers to the artery around Chongyang, stomach 42, where the beating of dorsal artery of the foot can be felt. Jueying in the middle refers to the artery around Taichung, where the first metatarsal dorsal artery beats. Shaoying in the lower, here we have different explanations. The popular and more accepted one refers to the artery around Taixi, Ki6, where the beats of posterior tibial artery can be felt. The other explanation refers to the artery in the sole, or beneath the big toe, where the foot Shaoying starts, and there is the distribution of the medial plantar artery or plantar arc. But it's not easy to feel their beats, so this explanation is not accepted widely. Anyway, The 3 vessels refer to the arteries, and their beat can be felt, so the speed and strength of the beating can be judged. That's the meaning of their excess or deficiency should be examined. What's the use of this examination? Because if it's deficient but being reduced, the deficiency would be aggravated and the disease will get worse. So, if the 3 vessels should be needled, the doctor should feel them with fingers. If the beat is forceful and rapid, it should be reduced. If it's weak and slow, it should be reinforced. If the rule is violated, the disease will get worse. Here, one thing should be mentioned. Nowadays, meridians, vessels, and pulses have different meanings. Meridians refer to the meridian system. Vessels usually refer to blood vessels, and the pulses are palpable beats of arteries. It seems they have different diagnostic skills, but we should know that in ancient literature, especially before the Jin dynasty, when exclusive diagnosis of Cunkou developed independently, meridian, vessel, pulse are actually one thing. The formation of meridian was closely related to the observation of different vessels all over the body, and of course, pulse, the beating of some vessels. So, in this text, you can see it says Yangming, Jueyin, and Shaoyin, which are the meridian names, and also says about their beating, their pulsation. In all, it's clear that in this chapter, the deficiency and the excess are judged by the fingers pressing on the vessels. They refer to the results obtained from diagnostic skills. Next, another famous therapeutic principle we often quote from the 10th chapter of Ling Shu, the meridians. It says, as to the treatment of these diseases, the excess should be reduced, the deficiency should be reinforced, the heat should be treated with swift techniques, the cold should be treated with needle retaining, the zinc should be treated with moxibustion, and if it's neither excessive nor deficient, it should be treated according to Jing. The excess means that Renying is 1 time bigger than Cunkou. The deficiency means that Renying is smaller than Cunkou. If we have read the full text of the chapter, or if we will remember what we have learned in the subject of meridians and collaterals, we will recall the preceding texts, and they are on the root of the meridian. For each of the 12 meridians, after their root, this sentence will follow with a little variation in the sentence marked with red star. So we can know, basically, the therapeutic principles are all the same for all meridians, and the sentence with red star is to explain the excess and deficiency in the text above. So what's excess and deficiency? It's the result of diagnostic skills. We can see the figure on the slide. In the middle, there are 4 circles. The outermost circle marked with 1 indicates diagnostic skills, which has 4 aspects like inspection, palpation, and so on. The circle marked with 2 indicates the palpation. Palpation includes skin feeling, pulse taking, etc. And the third indicates pulse taking. There are several types of pulse taking, like exclusive Cunkou method, general method. Our focus is the first circle, representing the method of comparison between Renying and Cunkou, and excess, deficiency, neither excess nor deficient, are all results from pulse taking. To be specific, from comparison between Renying and Cunkou. As to heat, cold, and sinking, there is no explanation, so maybe they refer to either the syndrome based on pathogenesis analyzing or the results from diagnostic skills. We can't be certain here. However, this chapter is not the only one on the therapeutic principles based on comparison of Renying and Cunkou. The 48th chapter has similar texts. We can find the answer in the 48th chapter. Before analyzing the 48th chapter, let's first check the 21st chapter according to the chapter order. Its title is Cold and Hot Diseases, and the related texts are: the foot taiyang has a branch entering the cheek and spreading in the teeth, and it's called jiaosun, which can be used to treat decayed upper teeth using the area anterior to the nose and cheek. The vessel is excessive when it's diseased, and excessive should be reduced, while the deficient should be reinforced. The text is about using a branch of foot taiyang to treat the problem of upper teeth. The disease is diagnosed by examining the vessel, and the treating method is also decided according to the vessel. So, from the text, it's also very clear that the excess and the deficiency all refer to the vessel. It's the result of diagnostic skills. To be specific, general pulse taking. We've mentioned before, the diagnostic skills for the pulse vessel or meridian were actually integrated at this time.